Welcome to this explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you here today because we're going to completely shift how you look at social dynamics, human interaction, and honestly, the very concept of politeness. We are unpacking some absolutely fascinating source material today. It's a deep dive into the hidden psychology behind why people act the way they do, especially when they're being, overly nice. We're going to peel back the layers on human behavior and look at what's really driving those excessively polite interactions. Trust me, by the end of this, you're never going to look at a flatterer the exact same way again.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever wondered why some people are just a little too polite? I want you to take a second and reflect. Think about that coworker who laughs just a little too hard at the boss's terrible jokes, or maybe an acquaintance whose compliments feel totally over the top. On the surface, sure, they're just being nice, but your gut tells you there is an entirely different energy at play. It almost borders on sycophancy, or even groveling, right? Why does it feel so uncomfortable? What is actually happening beneath the surface of all those smiles and eager nods?
Well, the source material makes a remarkably bold claim to answer this. It states that excessive manners are essentially a form of subservience masking a lack of underlying ability or knowledge, extending way beyond genuine respect. True manners actually have limits. Real respect is proportionate. So anything that extends beyond genuine, measured respect is no longer manners at all. Instead, it transforms into an unconscious subservient behavior. And here is the kicker. This subservience is almost always driven by a lack of capability. When someone doesn't have the actual skills to stand on their own 2 feet, they unconsciously lean on excessive politeness to prop themselves up.
So let's break down the mechanics of flattery and how this actually works. It is an unconscious behavior. It stems from lacking true knowledge, and it's used as a tool to fill capability gaps. The source points out that as time passes, if a person doesn't gain real skills, what we'll call true knowledge, they end up with massive capability gaps. They realize, usually on a subconscious level, that they just don't have the substance required to navigate their environment. To compensate for those deficits, they unconsciously slip into these habits of flattery and subservience. It's not some malicious master plan. They're simply using flattery as a makeshift tool, basically a piece of duct tape, to fill in the missing pieces where their actual competence falls short.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive paradigm shift it demands. Flattery is not a character flaw. It is a survival skill. We so often judge flatterers, right? We view their behavior as annoying, fake, or as a fundamental flaw in who they are. But the source material reframes this entirely. For those who lack the knowledge or the capability to advance through pure merit, flattery takes actual skill, and it requires a very specific type of energy. It's literally how they survive in a complex world. They're using the only tools they have available to them to ensure they stay afloat. To really grasp this, we have to contrast these two types of power metaphorically. On one side, you have the power of flattery and excessive kindness. This power is shallow, it depletes quickly, and it's heavily focused on immediate, day-to-day survival. It has a super narrow scope of influence. On the other hand, you have the power of true knowledge. This kind of power is deep, it's thick, and it's enduring. It's long-term, capable of handling complex, profound work. While flattery might get you out of a temporary jam or win you a quick favor, it can never, ever touch the deep, foundational work that true knowledge can achieve.
Which brings us to this brilliant quote. For them, flattery is a weapon for survival, just as knowledge is your strength. Let that sink in for a second. This perfectly illustrates that different people are equipped with entirely different types of energy to navigate the world. Think of it like this. You cannot expect someone armed only with a pocket knife to fight like someone holding a massive broadsword. We all have different resources. Recognizing that flattery is simply another person's primary weapon for survival completely neutralizes the annoyance you might normally feel towards them.
But we do need to shift to a cautionary tone here. Warning, do not try to fake it. If you're someone who relies on true knowledge, if you're a thinker, an intellectual, or someone who operates on pure capability, you absolutely must heed this warning. If you see a flatterer getting ahead and think to yourself, well, maybe I should just play the game and kiss up a little. Actually, scratch that. Just stop right there. The source material is crystal clear on this. It will end in total disaster for you.
Let's playfully walk through exactly why this fails and what we call the flattery backfire. Step 1. An intellectual attempts fake politeness. They try to lower themselves and act overly sweet, and honestly, it usually looks like a robot trying to hug you. Step 2. They fail to realize that flattery actually requires a highly attuned natural sensor and energy that they simply do not possess. Flatterers know how to smoothly read a room for survival. Intellectuals just don't have this radar tuned the same way. Step 3. Because it's fundamentally not in their nature, the intellectual gets caught immediately. It looks incredibly pathetic, wildly unnatural, and results in instant embarrassment. People will see right through you for sure.
So, the crucial point is, if we know that flattery is a desperate survival tactic for those lacking knowledge, and we know that we absolutely cannot fake it ourselves without looking foolish, how should a true intellectual respond? How should a person armed with true knowledge handle the flatterers around them? It's time to pivot from analyzing their behavior to empowering your own actions. The source gives us a very clear, empowering roadmap for the true intellectual's approach. First and foremost, do not condemn or judge the flatterer. Why? Because condemning someone for merely trying to survive means you actually lack true intellect yourself. A real intellectual understands the underlying mechanics of society. You need to understand the depths of their survival tactics, respect that they operate on a totally different frequency, and ultimately, use that profound understanding to manage and guide them. You're basically unlocking a new tool for effective leadership here, turning what used to annoy you into a strategic advantage. When we place these two perspectives side by side, the disconnect is stunning. The intellectual often views flattery as fake, unnecessary, and annoying. But in reality, by holding that view, the intellectual is failing to see the desperate human need for survival playing out right in front of them. The flatterer, however, views their own behavior as their essential lifeblood, their weapon. The reality is they're using it to navigate a world they feel completely unequipped for. Seeing this contrast really builds a necessary empathy. What you dismiss as fake is actually their vital lifeline.
To put it bluntly, true intellect requires understanding the hidden mechanics of how others survive. You cannot call yourself a true intellectual or an effective operator of society if you don't understand the basic survival behaviors of the people around you. True intellect isn't just about knowing facts from a book, it's about deeply comprehending the hidden gears of human nature. If you look at someone's survival mechanisms with disgust instead of comprehension, your knowledge is fundamentally incomplete.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this dynamic isn't static. People evolve. Imagine the timeline of someone's personal growth, the evolution of a flatterer. In phase 1, a person relies entirely on subservience and flattery just to get by. But then, phase 2 happens. They begin acquiring true knowledge and education. They start to build real capability. What happens in phase 3? Subservient behaviors systematically drop away. It is a beautiful inverse relationship. As their knowledge increases, they literally lose the ability and the desperate need to flatter.
Think of a person's capability like a set capacity, a capability shift. As the portion representing true knowledge begins to grow, it inherently pushes out the rest. The space for subservience and flattery naturally shrinks. It happens automatically. When you're filled with genuine competence and understanding, that hollow habit of faking it is completely broken. You don't even have to force yourself to stop flattering. The energy of true knowledge simply overrides the whole shebang.
So, digging into the absolute root cause of all of this, why do we cling to subservience in the first place? It comes down to fear and the desperate need to survive. The source material emphasizes that without knowledge, people lack courage. When you don't understand how the world works, the world is a terrifying place, and this fear breeds a kind of survival greed. People will do whatever it takes, including lowering themselves and acting fake, just to maintain their basic existence and feed themselves.
When you contrast these two mindsets, the difference is stark. Clinging to mere survival is driven entirely by fear and a lack of ability, and it inevitably leads to a subservient, almost begging lifestyle. But when you are grounded in true knowledge, you're driven by unshakable principles. Because you actually understand the mechanics of life, you naturally let go of that daily, desperate anxiety about your status. True knowledge eliminates the suffocating clinging to life that forces people to act fake in the first place.
And that leads us to this profound philosophical mic drop from the source. Even God doesn't mess with someone who has given up their life. Wow. Now, this doesn't mean literal death, okay? It means that when someone is so armed with true knowledge that they have completely let go of the greedy, fearful clinging to basic survival, they become utterly untouchable. They no longer fear losing their position or their comfort, which means absolutely no one can leverage fear to control them.
This is the ultimate state of empowerment, becoming truly untouchable. To get there, you have to do the work. You must build thick, enduring knowledge. You have to let go of the desperate greed for basic survival that makes you vulnerable to manipulation. You must understand and utilize the people around you, including the flatterers, without judgment, recognizing their tactics for exactly what they are. And finally, you must stand firmly on your own core principles. Nobody can mess with an individual who has replaced weak subservience with genuine, deep intellect.
I want to leave you with a final, very personal challenge. Look inward right now and ask yourself, which power are you relying on to navigate your life? Are you relying on the shallow, fast-depleting energy of flattery and excessive politeness just to survive the day? Or are you actively building the deep, enduring, untouchable power of true knowledge? The choice dictates not just how you act, but whether you are truly leading your life or merely surviving it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this sparks a new curiosity to cultivate deeper knowledge in everything you do.